Yes. I know there has been speculation about whether the reaction in some less well-informed areas about raids such as Dresden, for example, allied perhaps to the...
No, this was decided long before the controversial Dresden business cropped up. That I'd like to touch on to this extent. You know, you never hear any condemnation of the total destruction of Saint-Lazare and Lorient, two French towns on the Atlantic coast belonging to our defeated allies who were squirming under the jackboot of the common enemy, invader. No comment about that. Why? Because apparently it was ordered by the Navy, so it's quite all right. That was the funny attitude that exists. At the same time as I was told to destroy Saint-Nazaire and Lorient, I was also told to do the same to Bordeaux, the second largest city in France. The idea being that they were operating the submarines from there. Well, as a matter of fact, the actual submarine base was a little distance out of Bordeaux, so all the destruction of Bordeaux would have achieved would have been to have embittered the French forever, killed thousands of French, and maybe deprived the submarine crews of some of their girlfriends when they were on leave. It wouldn't have had any effect on the submarine war. So I refused to do that without a written order signed by Winston as the Minister of Defense, which was not forthcoming, because he was always, one thing he was always pushing into me, don't kill Frenchmen, don't kill Frenchmen. Well, I must say I didn't feel quite so worked up about whether Frenchmen got it in the neck or not, because they should have fought a bit better for their own country and not left it to us to do it all as factories, but for general purposes. But there you are, Chemnitz, Leipzig, yes, and Dresden were the last through routes, yes, by road and rail in which the German forces and reserves could be moved north to south or south to north, and especially back into that redoubt.
Yes, I think there's no doubt at all, sir, that in the last 20 or 30 years that the name of Dresden has assumed an emotional association out of all proportion to what was happening elsewhere.
But as I say, do you ever hear any tears shed over Lorient and Nazaire?
Not at all. How often do we hear, for example, of the comparison with what the Royal Navy did in the blockade in World War I
exactly.
to Germany? So it's...
Yes, that blockade.
Quite.
Of course, the thing is that the Air Force is always accused of carrying out war against the civil population. All major wars are always and always have been against the civil population. Now, as you say, in the First War, the naval blockade, what strategy did any navy ever have except war against the nation as a whole?
Absolutely.
By blockade.
Absolutely.
They had no other strategy. They couldn't have any other strategy. There's no such thing as another naval strategy. And in the First War, according to the figures we produced, the blockade of Germany is stated to have killed 800,000 Germans.
Yes.
As for the army, what army besieging a major city has ever allowed the civil population out? I've heard no example bar one. Haven't they always adopted the idea the more mouths in there, the sooner they'll have eaten the last cat, dog, and sewer rat and have to come out and surrender, and meanwhile every missile they can lob into the unfortunate city is lobbed in there.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
And believe you me, as an ex-Rhodesian and ex-South African, I would find it very hard to convince my many Afrikaner friends that armies don't fight against the civil population. Our last great colonial war was the Boer War, and the sole strategy in that war was scorched earth. Burn the farms, 30,000 of them, destroy the crops, slaughter the cattle, shoot or loot the horses, make life unsupportable throughout the breadth and length of the land, so that the commandos in the field could find no succor or sustenance anywhere. And with what result? The non-combatants from those farms had to be concentrated in camps. That was when the word concentration camp originated. And with what result? Owing to the usual, what the Yankees called snafus, or we call ball-ups, and the lack of medical knowledge in those days. What happened in that war was that 14,000 men and boys down to the age of 12 died in the field of battle, Boers. 39,000 Boer women and children died in the concentration camp, directly due to the scorched earth policy.
Yes.
All major wars have always been, and in the future will be ever more so, directed against the